Okay, it's 2 o'clock now, Pacific time, and time for us to get started. So thank you everyone for waiting and bearing with us while we tested everything. I'm going to turn it over to Brady Forrest and Sarah Milstein in just a moment. By the way, I'm Catherine Barrett with O'Reilly Media, and we also have Marcy Hennon with O'Reilly Media helping us out today. And I just wanted to say that one of the things you can do to make this work better for you is go to your meeting menu, choose Manage My Settings, and set the correct speed for your internet connection, and that'll give you a much better experience. If you have any technical issues during the presentation, send those to the presenters so we keep the chat room on topic, and I'll do my best to help you, and Marcy will help out too, and that way we won't bother everyone else with it. Also, if you feel free to share your comments and questions in the chat room. We ask that you preface your questions with the letter Q like that so they're easier for us to see, and we'll get to as many of the questions as we can after Brady and Sarah finish their presentation. And that's about it. I'm going to turn it over to Brady and Sarah and for a good talk here. There we go.
All right. Thank you, Catherine, and thanks everybody for joining us here today. So let's see. I'm Sarah Milstein, and this is Brady Forrest with me. We're the co-chairs for Web2Expo, which means we're the people who decide on the program ultimately for the show. Today we're going to do a little bit of intro, and then we're each going to give some tips, and then we'll do as much Q&A as we can absorb here. So as Catherine said, share your questions in the chat room. That's where we're going to find them. So by way of intro, we wanted to note that we could have called this talk, instead of how to submit a winning proposal, we could have called it submit a proposal that we'll consider seriously, or submit a proposal that doesn't suck. Now, we don't mean to be flip about this, but we have approximately 1 slot for every 10 proposals we get. Last year in New York, we got more than 600 proposals for the conference. And most of the proposals that we get are not very good. They're not appropriate for our audience, or they're not appropriate for our conference at all. So today we want to talk about how you can get into the pool of applicants that we take really seriously. And just to give you a quick overview of the process, after we get in our hundreds of proposals, our advisory board reviews them. And our advisory board is about a dozen people, maybe a little more, listed on our website. They review them and they vote on them, and then Brady and I take their votes very much into consideration as we make the final decisions about the program. So there's a lot of subjectivity to the process. There's not a formula that we can give you that says, do these 8 things and you'll get into the program. Because if all 600 people who applied did what we ask, we're still going to have to narrow it down to 60 or 70 sessions. But we would like to help you guys with the things you can control. So our tips today really focus on how to be one of the proposals that our advisory board and that we take really seriously and think there's something to. Now, 2 quick tips before we get going about how we're going to do this. We're just giving general tips. We're going to assume that you know what the form looks like for the proposal. So we're not going through the form where you submit a proposal step by step, but we're giving you tips for each one. If you don't know what that looks like, before you start thinking hard about your proposal, go and take a look at that form, because it asks you all the questions that we need to have answered as part of the process. And the second thing we wanted to let you guys know is that if you're looking for examples of good proposals, take a look at past shows and the things that the sessions that were listed, or even this year's San Francisco show, because the session descriptions for the shows come directly out of the proposals. So that should give you some models for what to look for. So we're going to assume basically you've done that kind of stuff, and these tips are as you get a little deeper into the process. So I'm going to turn it over to Brady. I'd like to turn it over to Brady, but I'm not sure if there's a delay in the system or if Brady can't hear me. Oh. This webcast?
Sarah, it looks like he can't hear you. Oh, he says if he does cut out, just everything keeps cutting out on him. For those who haven't heard, Brady's on a 3G modem, so he's shaking his head. Go, take it away, Sarah.
So I'm just gonna roll right through this. So the key dates this year for Expo for New York are April 12th is the deadline for submitting a proposal. A lot of years we extend the deadline about a week or so after that initial deadline. This year we're not going to do that. It's the drop dead deadline. We don't have room to extend it. So keep in mind that's just a couple weeks away. So you got to get yourself organized for the next couple weeks to get that in. After we get them all in, we take about a month and a half or two to get everything organized, to review, make sure we've done a good job of reviewing everything carefully, and then we'll post we'll notify the presenters, and we'll post the live schedule. And at that point, registration opens for the conference as well. The conference is scheduled in New York at the end of October. And basically, after that first after that first website launch in June, we're pretty much set. We're just working on details of the conference. All right. So these are Brady's slides, and I'm just gonna roll right through them here. So the first tip as you're thinking about the proposal is to make sure you've got a unique story. We really are looking for the session that only you can give, because you've had a unique experience, you've got some data from your company, from your project, from your nonprofit that you can analyze that nobody else would have, but that would be illuminating for other people. Really looking for your unique story, and we want something that's compelling, not just because it's unique, but because it would also apply to other people. Now, we're looking here. I think this was Brady's example of a session where the panel description didn't quite grab us. So take a look at this. We're going to post these slides afterward along with the video so that you have more time to read through. But we were intending to give you guys some examples here of what's working and what's not working. You do want to think about who the audience is. We ask in the proposal form, who's the audience for it? Is it marketers? Is it designers? Is it developers? Is it people from big companies or small companies? You really need to think about that, because our conference is really broad. It's an umbrella kind of a conference with a lot of sub-tracks. This year the tracks are design and user experience, development, social media marketing, and I'm forgetting the other one, and it's one of mine. That's strategy and business models. And then we have 6 mini tracks as well. So we want to think about both kind of where you fit by topic in those kinds of tracks, but also by audience. We really want to know who's going to benefit from your session. And you need to think that through beforehand, not just anybody who works on Web 2, but specifically who within that is really going to get a lot out of your conference. And again, an example here that I would encourage you to go back and take a look after the webcast for what we're looking for. And one of the things we're really not looking for are pitches. At our show, we don't do product pitches. A lot of conferences put sponsors on stage, put lots of companies on stage to pitch their products. We don't do that at Web2Expo. So anything that looks even a little bit like a pitch, our audience is really sensitive to that. They don't do well with it. They tend to rate those sessions very low. So our advisory board and we are super sensitive. And if your session looks like a pitch, if it looks like it's about how to use your product or the importance of your product, it's not going to get through. So lessons from your product, great if they apply broadly, as I said earlier, that unique story. But a product pitch doesn't fly with us. Steer clear of those. Again, this is an example, and Brady noted here this was submitted by a PR person. Take a look afterwards. This is the sort of thing to avoid. Now, you do want to think of the attendees, and we ask you to explain, what are people going to get out of this session? Are they primarily going to take away some how-to information that they can implement tomorrow, or is it more conceptual and they're going to be thinking about it over the next year or so? But when you're creating your proposal, think of the attendees. Think about what will make them really get engaged and what they'll learn from your session very specifically. Again, take a look afterwards for an example of the kind of thing we're looking for. I believe this is an example of what we were not looking for, but we'll label these before we post the slides so that you guys know this was an example of what we wanted or what we didn't. All right, so we also ask that you skip the jargon. A lot of proposals come to us with a ton of buzzwords. The tech sector is just rife with buzzwords. And when you include a lot of jargon in your session, I think people think it's gonna make you look like you're an insider, like you know what you're talking about. But usually it obscures your meaning, and we think you don't know what you're talking about. So here's an example of an actual proposal. This session will provide an overview of leading-edge engagement platforms architected to enable real-time brand lift and ROI with location-aware mobile analytics. Now, I have no idea what this sentence says. It includes a lot of the buzzwords that we're interested in this year. We have focus tracks on mobile, on analytics, on real-time. We're all about platforms. But there's nothing about this that any sane person could read and say, oh, I know exactly what that session's going to be about. What this looks like to us is you wanted to look like you were in the know, but actually you had no idea what you were talking about and thought some buzzwords would get you through. What we want is something that's really clear and simple and conversational. So something more like this. This session will analyze 3 leading approaches companies take to participating in and tracking results from social media. It's not the sexiest sentence of all time, but anybody could read that and get a sense of what this session is about. So steer clear of the buzzwords. They really serve to make us think this proposal is not very strong. Now, we are looking particularly for proposals from people we don't see very often at tech conferences. So here's who we do see. This is Brady and the guys from Dig. A lot of young white guys on the stage. We love Brady and the guys from Dig, but we are looking for other perspectives. So that could be a number of different things, and when you're thinking about putting together a panel or who from your company might represent, think beyond the young white guys. We're looking for people of color, we're looking for women, we're looking for people with disabilities, we're looking for people who are older. We mostly get very young people on this show. Love some older people as well. Now this year, as part of the submission process, we're requiring video. We are requiring video. I'm going to say that one more time. We are requiring it. You must submit video as part of your proposal. There's 2 ways you can do it. If there's video out there of you already, if you presented at another conference and there's video of it that's posted to the web and you liked the presentation, great. Send us that link. But if there's no video of you already, or if there isn't really good video, you can just create a 2-minute pitch of what your session's about, who it's for, and what they'll get out of it. Do it on your phone. It can be very low quality video. We don't care about the quality of the video at all. So do it on your phone and then just post it to YouTube. Send us that link. I did it the other day to test it. This is just a screenshot. You can see I was like in my kitchen. It's very lo-fi. But what we're looking for is to see that you're clear and that you would have good energy as a presenter. So show us in the video what you would be like as a presenter. All right. Now, also important is that whenever possible, you do it yourself. We get a lot of proposals from PR people, and we recognize that that's part of the ecosystem for submitting proposals, and many companies require it. But the hard data tells us that the vast majority of proposals that we get from PR people are rejected by the advisory board. And it's for a couple of reasons. A lot of times the PR people are pitching things that are product pitches, or they're very general, or they're just kind of doing a little feeling out and seeing if we're interested in their company generally, their client. Often what happens is if they have a proposal that's not bad, we follow up with the speaker to talk about it, and the speaker didn't even know that the PR person had submitted on their behalf. So we wind up having a pretty awkward conversation that doesn't make anybody look good. So whenever possible, submit yourself. Don't let your PR people do it. And if you are a PR person, you've got to work closely with the speakers. And this year, because we're requiring video, it has to be a video of the speakers, not video of you. So at least you have a conversation. But we ask you to think pretty hard about this, because the data is very clear for us that the pitches from PR people don't tend to fly with our review audience. Also of note here is that when we see a lot of proposals, more than 1 or 2 from the same person, it just looks to us like, not like that person has a lot of good ideas, but like they're just spamming us. They're doing a spray and pray kind of approach and seeing if anything sticks. Most of the time when we get a lot of proposals from one person, we just reject them all, because it's hard for us to filter and say, what's this person really expert in, their unique story. this is particularly notable with PR people because a PR person might be representing a lot of clients and trying to submit proposals for a whole lot of clients. So the same thing applies. We can see a PR person submitting for a lot of clients, but for all we know, it's a PR person who hasn't spoken to any of them and is just trying to get some traction with the show. So be pretty careful both with the number that you submit and so that is it on our tips. We really want to take your questions here. I'm hoping, yeah, that Brady's been in here in the chat room, I see, answering questions. But I'm going to jump in and see. Let's see, Catherine, have you been tracking the Q&A? Are there any that I should start with that Brady hasn't had a chance to answer? Or should I just take a look in the chat window?
I have been tracking them, and it looks like Brady has answered most of them. But at the very start, before we even began, someone was asking, where do you actually submit stuff for the Web2Expo?
Yeah, so this is the link right here on the last page of the presentation, and it's in the, Marcy just posted it into the chat room.
Great.
That's the link for proposals for us.
And Barbara just asked the question, when is the San Francisco Web 2.0 deadline for proposals?
Well, this year's San Francisco show, which is this year on May 3rd through the 6th, that's closed. That's been closed for a couple of months. We'll open next year's CFP in the fall, probably in October or November.
Okay.
Let's see. Any more questions in here?
There you see. What are some of the gems that you're looking for as far as presentations go?
Drew, I'm not sure what you mean by that question. Brady may have an answer, but can you clarify what you mean by gems? I mean, one thing I could say while you're thinking about that is that, as I said at the beginning, you can look and see the past programs. Those really give you a sense of the kinds of things that we look for. Well, what stands out when we see, you're asking what stands out when we see a proposal? What stands out is that it's a unique story, that there's an experience that the presenter has and hopefully some data to back it up that tells a real story that other people can learn from, that says, our company tried to do something and we failed miserably. Here's what happened. We took this other tack and it worked well. Here's what happened. Here's what you can take away from that. That there are some lessons that other people can learn. And that's clearly articulated, and that it's lessons that are hopefully something that we don't see 300 other people submit on. At this point, for example, we've seen plenty of lessons about how to run a campaign on Facebook. We're interested in something that's a little bit new. Hope that helps. More questions? Okay, so somebody has asked us, Gaurav has asked us, I'm a strategy, innovation, and marketing professional. I recently presented an hour-long workshop at a client. Not sure if they created a video, but if they did, may I share that video? You can share any video with us that you think represents you well as a presenter. So if the video is really good, and it will be obvious to us in the first few minutes that you're a really good presenter and that you're very clear and you've got a lot of energy, great, post that video, that's fine. If the video doesn't really demonstrate that well, or if I have to be half an hour in before I see that, create a new video for us. Just create a 2 or 3 minute pitch that lets us know how good a presenter you are. Let's see. Micah is asking, do you allow co-presenting? For example, an agency and a client. Yeah. Take a look at our previous programs. You'll see there's a lot of co-presentations. We certainly do allow that, but it has to be, it has to be a good pairing. Whether it's a co-presentation or a panel, it has to make sense to have both of those partners on the stage. And one thing I will say about proposals that are agency and client proposals, a lot of times those look like a pitch. So you need to be careful with those to make sure that they really represent you well and that they show a unique story and that they don't look like a product pitch of any kind. Any more questions?
Sarah, I know the last time we did this, people were asking about running workshops and about holding panels, how to handle those submissions. So maybe you would address that.
Sure, yeah. So most of our sessions are 50-minute breakout sessions or 20-minute breakout sessions. This year in New York, you can propose a 20-minute session where you've got like 15 or 18 minutes of a great talk, and then you're going to take a few minutes of Q&A. You could do a longer session of 50 minutes, which are most of our breakouts. That would be more like a panel or something where there's a bigger lesson. But we do have on the very first day of the conference just a few slots for 3-hour-long workshops, for half-day workshops. And those are really hands-on, kind of get into the nitty-gritty with people about how to do something. If you've got that kind of material where you're really training people to do something, look at proposing a 3-hour workshop. And there aren't that many of those, but we value those a lot. So we look for those kinds of proposals for sure. In terms of panels, one of the questions, as Catherine noted, we got a lot of this when we did this webcast last week, people asking about panels. We do it a little bit differently than a lot of conferences. Many conferences come up with an idea and then they create a panel around it. Most of our panels, if not all of them, are created because somebody proposed a panel and brought together all of the panelists. So in our case, it's rare that you want to simply be on a panel, that you could propose yourself as a panelist without proposing the panel as well, which is a particularly important note for PR people who are often looking to place a client on a panel. We just don't do that with our conference. That hasn't come up once this year for San Francisco. We really look for you to propose the idea with a really strong moderator and then have a lineup of good panelists behind it. Let's see, looks like Brady's covering Drew's question. Any other questions? Let's see, Gaurav is asking, I'm very interested in the 3-hour workshops. I have the material. How and where do I communicate this? Is there a separate submission system for your 3-hour workshops? Nope. All the proposals go through that same form, the link for which is up on the screen right now. And we simply have a box where you mark off what kind of session you're proposing. Is it a 3-hour session? Is it a 20-minute session? Is it a 50-minute session? So it's the same form for all of them, but you just tell us which kind. Let's see, any more questions? Let's see. Okay, so it looks like we're getting to the end here, since I'm not seeing more questions. We will annotate the slides, as I mentioned earlier, to say which things, this was an example of something we want, this is an example of something we don't want. We'll also include the transcript from the chat, so you can go back and look at that, as well as some of the chat questions from last week's webcast. And we'll post the whole thing on SlideShare in the next day or two. So take a look for that. And I think we're getting to the end of this. Drew has just asked if we have questions later, can we email you? There is an alias that you can email that we keep an eye on, and some other folks who help with the proposal system answer as well. And it's listed on the page where you submit a proposal. So that's pretty easy to find. All right. Let's see. I'm just going to keep an eye for another second for questions. If you guys don't have any more questions, just give us a thank you so we know that you're done. And if you have more questions, go ahead and post them. Okay. This is looking good.
Looks like you've covered it all, Sarah.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. We'll look forward to seeing your proposals soon.
Hey, thank you. And thank you, Brady, too. Sorry you couldn't speak up. We'd like to hear you, but thanks for helping out and answering questions. And everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm going to close out the meeting room now. If you didn't get a chance to grab that slide deck and you don't want to wait for it to appear on SlideShare, you can email me at webcast@o'reilly.com and I'll send you a copy of it. So thank you very much. Talk to you soon.